Hello and welcome to my channel. Have you ever had a decor piece that just wasn't serving you anymore? I did. It was this bunny tag. It just didn't go over well and I wanted to change it up, and I'm going to show you how easy that is to do. We're going to use decoupage paper, molds, and some paint to completely transform this tag. I'm using an element from the Catalog of Birds paper by Rocycled Treasures. Those are available on my website. I didn't need to wet cut this one, but I did because it was just a little longer. And then the next thing that I wanted to do is just take a sanding block and make it as smooth as possible. This is a little bit of a rough surface. In order to make my decoupage paper pop, I want a light background, and I also want to cover up that bunny. I want to make sure that he's not peeping through, that we thank him for his service and say goodbye, and we're just going to completely transform this. So I did 2 coats over the bunny area just to make sure that it wasn't going to pop through. And then I'm going to let this paint. This was Wise Owl's Antique Villa Chalk Synthesis paint. Next, I'm going to position my bird, just kind of get him right where I want him. And I'm using Wise Owl's 1 Hour Enamel Clear Coat in matte as my decoupage medium, making sure that I get a good coat on there. You'll see that I'm using plastic wrap, and for a surface that might not be completely smooth, I highly recommend using a little plastic wrap to smooth down your paper. It seems to help your paper mold to the surface. So you're going to see that that paper actually settles into the grooves without wrinkles. So I really love that and hope that you'll give that a try. The edges when you're decoupaging are always the thing that you need to pay attention to. So check your edges before you do any sanding. And now before I put my top coat on, I'm going to go ahead and sand off the excess paper, always going in a downward motion so that I don't tear my paper. And it really does give you a crisp line. Now that the paper's in place, I'm going to go ahead and seal that again with the 1 Hour Enamel Clear Coat in matte, and I'm going to let that dry. There you go. So now that that's done, I wanted to add some more embellishments to that. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the IOD silicone mold. It's called Trimmings 3. And you'll see here that I'm adding a little cornstarch to that mold because it really does help the moist air dry clay to release easily from your mold. You'll see that I'm just kind of rolling out a snake. I don't need the entire length of that mold because my tag isn't that wide. Then using just a plastic scraper, you can use a gift card, whatever you like, a putty knife, something like that. I just want to expose my lip, and then I'm going to have a crisp mold, and you can see how beautifully detailed these are. And then I'm going to set that aside. I made some other molds just to go on that, and I'm going to start with the bottom here. It's a little longer than I need, so with an X-Acto knife I can easily just trim away the clay, and now I have a mold that perfectly fits my wood tag. I'm going to spread a little quick and thick Titebond glue on the back, and I'm just using a spreader. The most important thing to do when you're working with your molds is just to make sure that you get your adhesive all the way to the edges. Then you can put that in place, and I'm very gently making sure that it's completely made contact with my wood tag. And now it's time for the top. And don't worry about that hole at the top. We are going to bring that back, but right now we're going to cover that with the molds. I decided to use 3 molds up at the top. I did 2 thinner ones and 1 thicker one, just for a little contrast. And so I'm starting with that top mold, and I really should have trimmed it here and then gone on to the next mold, but we're going to go ahead and take care of that. So you'll see how we can do that even if you've already put your molds in place, but it would be really easier to trim as you apply each mold instead of doing all 3 of them at once. So we're going to put on our final mold, again spreading the glue, making sure that I get all the way to the edges, and then we're going to be able to put that final mold in place. And now it's time to trim them. It was a little more difficult to do it from the front, but I am using the edge of the tag as a guide. So I went ahead and turned it over and just gently, without, stabbing myself. I didn't want to have to get stitches today. So I went ahead and trimmed that away, and then it made it easier on the front to trim and smooth my mold. Now we need to address the hole. And so what I'm doing is going from the back with a small paintbrush, and I'm just kind of wiggling it in there just to get my mark. Then from the front, I'm going in, and then using the original hole, I'm just rubbing that brush handle to create that hole again. Now I want to create some interest on my molds, and I'm starting with a coat of Joshua Tree Chalk Synthesis Paint by Wise Owl, and completely coating my molds. I'm going to add cracked patina. This is by Amy Howard at Home, and I've got some in a little dish here, and you'll see that I'm brushing this on. I feel that it works best if you can let it dry on its own for about an hour, but you can go ahead and heat it up, go ahead and dry it with a heat gun. And now I'm applying over the dried cracked patina, I'm again applying that Antique Villa by Wise Owl. This is going to start to crackle very quickly, and then how I really like to get an authentic look is to use a little brush in random places, and my favorite tool for this technique is just to use my fingers. So you'll see that you get a really, really authentic look when you're doing that, and I just really, really love it. It's my favorite crackle medium. Now I want to make sure that the tag is finished on all sides, and I'll also paint the back just to make sure that it looks good from all sides. I'll let this dry, and then I will seal it, and then we have a tag that we've taken from something that no longer served us to something that will serve us now. I hope you enjoyed this project. I would love it for you to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Happy creating.